Hello, welcome to Dungeon's podcast. I'm your host Justin. So this is part 2 on how to cure superhero fatigue. I forgot, that's the problem when you do multiple takes. You forget certain points that you made in previous takes on your current take. So I forgot, one of the things I forgot to mention on why it's important for it to be cinematic comic book universe and not just do standalone superhero movies is because, in my opinion, as a superhero comic book fan, I cannot go back to the 2000s and 90s where you had, when you had like superhero movies where they were the only superheroes that existed in their movie universes. Okay, as a comic book fan, I'm done with that stuff. We're already used to a standard thanks to Marvel and in DC. I cannot, as a comic book fan, go back to that. And there's more money to be made, and you make fans happier if you have like an interconnected universe, and that way you can make more money on like merchandise, toys, video games, or whatever, right? So and like I said, I cannot go back to stupid standalone comic book movies. I want my cinematic universe, okay? If Kevin Smith can make a cinematic universe work with his comedy films, we can make comic book movies work, okay? That's just it. So, for this video on part 2, we're going to be talking about me pitching Image Comics superhero cinematic universe. Okay. So why I think Image specifically work is, one, because of 90s nostalgia. Two, they're recognizable characters. They've had movies, cartoons, video games already based off the property. One, 90s nostalgia because they're from the 90s, right? And soon 90s nostalgia will be a huge thing in my opinion, right? And 4 is because, Image has been known for being very, Image comics, especially in the 90s, have been known for being very ultra violent. And we need R-rated superhero movies, because R-rated superhero movies, in my opinion, will help with the superhero fatigue. Like, comic book fans have been asking for a long time for R-rated superhero movies, and we've only got, what, 3 or 4? And that's not including, superhero movies that are not based off comic books, right? So yeah, so why Image would work, in my opinion, because they've had like the history of like ultra violence and stuff like that. You have characters who are like mercenaries, characters that are supernatural demons, ultra violent alien warriors, stuff like that, right? So we're gonna do phase 1, and phase 1 of Image is going to be, and that's depending on whether or not we can get the Jim Lee characters back from DC, because Jim Lee was one of the creators of of Image back in the day. He created like the Wildcats. He co-created Stormwatch, Wetworks, and he defected from Image, gutting their superhero universe. So for a proper 90s style Image Comics cinematic movie universe, we need to get those characters back. So we either cut a deal with DC, giving them cut of the box office, cut of the merch, right? Whatever they ask, except for this, which is creative control. If DC asks for creative control, you tell DC, go fuck yourself. You want creative control off comic book characters that you're not even using in your comics anymore. And the whole point of this is to save the superhero genre, right? which you and Marvel have already been fucking up. So if they ask for creative control, you tell them to go fuck themselves. Alright? Because as much as I would like to have Wildcats and Stormwatch and IO, which is the Image version of, you know, the Shield, right? If they ask for creative control, you tell them, not even politely, go fuck yourself. Alright. So if we can't get Wildcats and Jim Lee's characters, so Phase 1 is going to be Spawn, because he's already had a movie. He's already having an upcoming movie. So you get Phase 1, you get Spawn, and you try to get Darren Aronofsky. Darren Aronofsky's important because he's apparently a comic book fan, and he got fucked over by DC with Batman Begins. Batman Begins is basically a Darren Aronofsky movie that Christopher Nolan stole the credit for. So hopefully you get Darren Aronofsky, and you tell him, hey, we give you creative control. All you have to do is to have cameos by Youngblood, which is Liefeld's comic book, superhero team. Who Youngblood is basically like the Avengers / Justice League of this universe. So you just need to have cameos by this team. They can just be mentioned of broadcasts. We don't care. You just have to have that cameo, because we're gonna need cameos for Phase 1 to work and to set up the massive crossover event. We're going to need cameos by Youngblood, right? And as we get forward, I'll tell you why. So, second movie is Cyberforce, Mark Silvestri's Cyberforce, because if we can't get Jim Lee as Wildcats, Cyberforce aesthetically look very similar to Jim Lee. They're very cool characters, right? They would sell toys, especially Youngblood and Spawn. They would sell toys and they look cool, right? And they would work. They would work, right? Third one, and this is going to be the artistic film that's going to get the critics on our side for our cinematic universe, and that's going to be Sam Keith's The Mask movie, which all these Phase 1 movies are going to be set in the 90s, and I'll tell you why later on. But Sam Keith's going to Max is going to work because it's dark, gritty, and it's very it would be a very original superhero movie, because you have this homeless superhero who may be crazy or might not be crazy, whose villain is this evil warlock who likes to abuse women, and our homeless character, the Max, has to protect homeless superhero. The Max has to protect, his social worker Julie, who is the Jungle Queen in his fantasy world where he comes from, and the evil warlock comes from, right? Which I forget his name, but if you watch my Max reviews, you know what I'm talking about. And I also want to mention, I am an Image casual fan, so if you guys have your own opinions on how an Image cinematic universe should work, make your own video, let me know in the comments, alright? So yeah, and for the director of the Max film, we should get David Robert Mitchell, who is kind of a disgraced movie director, because he had one hit with It Follows, and he had his second film, or third film technically, because he did a comedy before It Follows, Under the Silver Lake, which is a great movie, and it's very 90s nostalgia film, right? And also lots of 90s grunge music is in that movie. Well, not really, but in the one scene it is. And we're gonna, for the Max to work, it's gonna need a 90s grunge aesthetic and grunge music, and Under the Silver Lake had a lot of 90s nostalgia feel to it, and David Robert Mitchell, I think, would be a fantastic director for a Max movie, right? And it's very dark, and he can handle dark, dark themes and dark, cinematography in his movies. We've already seen that with It Follows and Under the Silver Lake, and if I think with the Max movie, right, we would get like people like Chris Stuckman, Jeremy Johns, like Red Letter Media would like fucking love this movie, right? So we would get the critics on our side, right? So like the other movies for Phase 1, right? We're going to need the Pact because we need sorry, I got paused. And the Pact is kind of like, it was only like a 4-issue like comic book series from the 90s, but reason why I want to resurrect that and make that as a movie. One, because the creators of those comics would have been like, fuck yeah, we would sign up for a movie. And two, if the main character Smash is very powerful, and we're gonna need him for to take on the big bad that we're setting up in like Phase 1, right? So, and like you already had Youngblood was already in like the second issue, the first and second issue, right? And Youngblood is going to be part of the Phase 1, right? So like that, and like Smash is very reminiscent of wow, what the fuck is his name? Of All Might from My Hero Academia, to the point where in my review of the Pact, I'm like, there's no way that the mangaka of My Hero Academia did not read the Pact, because there are so many similarities between Smash and like All Might. The fact that like, Smash is like half Asian, and he's like this all-American like superhero from California, and like and like All Might is, despite looking like American, he's Japanese, right? And like he's Japanese, and his special attack is to name a state and space Smash, which is very which is obviously an homage to Smash, if I'm right? And like you have diversity in the team, because you have an old character, you have a young gun, you have a African woman. I think her name was Cutlass, right? So like you have your diversity there, and we didn't even have to race swap a lot of the characters, right? So for the second phase, the whole point of Phase 1 is setting up for Phase 2. And like Phase 1 was set in the 90s, right? And we already established Omni-Man. So we're gonna have the Invincible movie in Phase 2, and Omni-Man has supposed to have been on Earth for like 20 years, right? And the problem with the Invincible comic book is that they set up Omni-Man has been on Earth for 20 years, and like if you read the Invincible comic books, they somewhat connect to the Image comic book universe, even though it makes no sense, because they had the greatest superheroes on Earth was like a rip-off Justice League, right? So how we're fixing that is by having Omni-Man's been on Earth for 20 years, and he's been with Youngblood, right? So the Phase 2 is going to take place in the 2010s, right? In the Spawn movie, you've had like Chapel has been in the Spawn movie, right? We had that taken care of, and we're gonna set up the Invincible movie, and it's gonna be 14A. We're gonna have some violence, but not too much swearing, and we're gonna set up, that Omni-Man is going to be the big bad of the Image comic book universe that all of our Image superheroes have to team up to take on Omni-Man. Why that? I think that's important because Invincible can be the movie franchise that will get the Tom Holland Spider-Man crowd. One, you already have the successful Invincible animated series, and two, by having Omni-Man as the main villain, right? We already have like the big bad for the Invincible franchise and the main Image cinematic universe already set, right? So what's gonna happen is that in the Invincible movie, right, Omni-Man is going to kill Youngblood, which is the Justice League Justice League / Avengers team of the Image comic book universe. Instead of Omni-Man, killing Omni-Man, not killing Mark because Mark says, "I would still have you, Dad." We're gonna change Omni-Man's motivation to to him betraying to him being up on Mark, right? Not because he wants to kill him, right? Because he loves Mark, right? And that will, because in the comic book, in the animated series, it didn't really make sense for Omni-Man not to kill Mark, right? So we're gonna fix that by having it Omni-Man, who we're gonna try to get either J.K. Simmons, put him in a muscle suit, or we're gonna try to, if he's not too old by the time this happens, Josh Brolin. But yeah, we're gonna have it set up that the last 20 years have been the happiest time of his life in his 500 or 1,000 year lifespan. But he tells Mark, "Hey, Mark, I don't want to kill you. I don't want to kill you. But if I don't kill you, the Viltrumites, Armada's gonna show up, and then they're gonna kill you. And I rather have you dead by my own hand than have you torn apart by my fellow Viltrumites." And they hate half-breeds. So we're gonna give lots of motivation. We're gonna show the audience the reason why Omni-Man's not just killing Mark, because one, he actually loves Mark, he loves his family, and he wants Mark on his side, right? So when the Viltrumites show up, and he's gonna tell Mark this, that this is my half-breed son, he helped me take down Earth for the Viltrumite Empire, right? So we're gonna establish that he wants the reason why he doesn't want to kill Mark, right? Because he loves his son, and it's been the last 20 years has been the best time of his life, right? And but he still rather kill. So you still have that thing where he is ruthless, and he's still a threat. He would still want to kill Mark because he'd rather see him dead than be torn apart by the brutal fucking Viltrumite Empire, right? So what? But instead of he spares him because he gives that speech of, who would you have in a 1,000 years from now when everybody you've known has been long dead, right? Oh, I still have you dead. Instead of that, you have the Image, because this fight in the cartoon was 15 minutes long. So we'll do that with the movie, and then Omni-Man shows how powerful Viltrumites are by trashing half the fucking country, right? City after city, using Mark as a ragdoll, showing how overpowering he is, and at the same time showing how powerful the Viltrumite Empire. Imagine if 100 of them show up, right? So what ends up happening, instead of Omni-Man, just sparing him and just sparing Mark and just flying off, we have like, you know, the superheroes, the Image superheroes that we've been setting up in the phase 1 coming in to save Mark, right? So we would have characters like Spawn, who is, you know, who can't be killed all, like, you know, can't be killed instantly because he has his necro energy, right? And he's magic, so he can probably like affect Omni-Man, not Ultraman. One, we would have Smash, because Smash is super strong and he has, like, you know, he has some speed, right? Also, I forgot to mention Pit. We would have a Pit movie, right? And Pit's like, will be the Hulk of the Image comic book universe, right? And most of these guys are in New York, so we'll have like the whole speech like that where he's about to kill Mark in New York, so they can show up, right? You also have Blacklight from the Pact, who has like a Green Lantern powers, so he should be able to help, and he can like carry like make like, you know, all the non-flyers fly using his Green Lantern rip-off powers, right? So that's how we handle how we get our characters to fly who can't fly, by having, you know, a Blacklight give them the powers, not just like in the stupid like Invincible comic book where all of our characters can fly because we need them to. Right? Yeah, so you have like also you have like the cyborgs and Cyberforce, you know, some of them, you know, if they get too because they're cyborgs, we can show them getting fucked up by like Omni-Man, right? But yeah, they would eventually, like, you know, put up enough of a struggle that, like, you know, Omni-Man would have to screw off, and we would already have like another Phase 2 movie would be Supreme, right? Supreme can like. Supreme is like another Superman ripoff created by like Rob Liefeld, and like, you know, Alan Moore like wrote a lot of it. So we would hopefully try to get Alan Moore, promise him like, hey Alan Moore, write or direct, because he tried to make a TV show recently. We would say, hey Alan Moore, write and direct like a Supreme movie for us, and we'll let you put as much atheist commie propaganda you want, as long as the movie's good. Okay, so like, because we would need Supreme on the team for the crossover movie to help take down Omni-Man, and then like Phase 3 would be setting up for the Viltrumite Empire, and then, you know, eventually we'll do like, you know, Spawn Wars, where we have Malbolgia show up, and like, you know, you have like the Spawn-centric crossover movie. And yeah, that's all my thoughts on that, because like, hopefully if the movies had done good enough, we would get reprints of all the old comic books, and then I would be able to come up with new ideas. But that's just my thoughts on how to set up, you know, Image comic book universe. You have the first wave, which is the 90s nostalgic movies that sets up, that all have like cameos with Youngblood, with Omni-Man on the team, and then Phase 2 you set up, you know, Omni-Man as the villain, and you show like Youngblood getting just killed by like by Omni-Man, and then you set up the stakes for this cinematic universe, and you would be able to, you know, and like Rob Liefeld might get pissed off. Oh, you're killing off my superheroes, what, my cash cows? How can I make money? It's like, Rob, we'll bring in Brigade, we'll bring in like your other fucking like shitty superhero teams that nobody like. Maybe Brigade can be like I think it's called Brigade. Can be like the, like, you know, Suicide Squad, right? Because they're like undead, like superheroes that can be brought back. They can be cannon fodder for Omni-Man. But yeah, like we'll give you. That's the other problem, is we're gonna need to figure out how the fuck can we get these creators to sign off on this bullshit and like give us creative leave to have like the directors and the actors do whatever the fuck they want. and like, you know, like still get them to, like, you know, um, like, you know, let us, you know, like, get them to get their permission, right? Because, like, some of these characters need to die, and they might get pissed off because, oh, my cash cow's dead. Well, we'll need to figure out that later. Maybe, like, promise them cameos or whatever, and give them residuals. Which they're already, because they own the characters, they would make money off the fucking movie itself and the fucking toy sales. But yeah, we would need to fucking figure that shit out. But yeah, that's it for, like, part 2 on how to save how to cure superhero fatigue and set up an image comic book universe. Alright guys, peace.